everybody, welcome to the TraderMerlin show. It is your Thursday afternoon edition. Hope you had a good trading session out there. At least we had some movement, right? To look on the bright side of things. Let's see what I got today. This morning, my voice is already cracking because I did 2 hours with the crypto program from 9 to 11 today. Actually, a lot of fun. We talked a lot about the metaverse stocks, and a lot of different cryptocurrency projects. Even looked at some of the games that are out there. There are a couple of really cool ones. Some are just really stupid, but I'm sure we'll probably talk about on this show at some point once some of those games are live and I can actually play with them. All right. So today I had, this was 2 days ago, I got questioned about Elon Musk, and I thought, why don't I turn this into something? Main reason being is I think a lot of people look at insider trading in the headlines and think, oh, wow, insiders are selling or buying. You know, what does this mean? So I'm going to tackle that for a little bit here today. By the way, good shout out to our usual early bird starters. Alex, good to have you with us. And by the way, Alex, if I forget, remind me by the end of the show to talk about your Jivo options play. Terry, Margaret, Rob, good to see you from the UK today. We got Dana, Mikayas Photo, Giselle, and Les, Big Ab, the regulars, and Mr. David. Good to have you with us as well. Short, huh? Do we want a short? Maybe. Let's see. Maybe the insider trading stuff will help us. So here's the question that came in from Lee. He says, does the amount of shares that Elon Musk is selling concern you? Is it bad for Tesla? Well, it's kind of a loaded question. And it's an unknown one, right? Normally our logic would say, hey, you have an insider like Elon Musk. Obviously, he's the face of Tesla. And if he's out there unloading his shares, well, that would lead you to believe that he thinks it's going to go down. Now, I have to almost put Tesla in a different category, almost an exemption here. And the main reason for that is Elon Musk has so many shares of Tesla, and he's made it public he doesn't draw a salary. I don't know about that. But the guy, at a certain point, it makes sense for him to sell some. And I love the way he did it, asking a Twitter poll. I thought that was hilarious. But is it bad for Tesla? I don't think it's bad for Tesla, personally. I don't think that in this case, it's necessarily that bad of a thing. He's still keeping a bulk of his shares. He just sold out some, pay some taxes on that, make a little bit of money for himself, which, let's be honest, I think he's earned it. Does it concern me? These things never concern me. I don't care who sells what. Now, if it's in something that I own, then I'll pay a little bit closer attention to it. Now, it's not just is Elon Musk selling. There's patterns to it. So for many of these people, like Jeff Bezos, like Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, it's automatic. There's not a conscious decision in, Bill Gates' head that says, oh, shoot, our stock's overvalued. I have to sell a bunch of shares today. They have so many that it's just automatic. Every day sell 1 million shares, right? And they'll still never run out. And I agree, Jeff. It says Musk has to be in a similar position to Zuckerberg. Probably. Zuckerberg has been much more consistent with his selling, and we're going to look at that here in just a second. On that note, why don't we just go and take a look at what to make of insider selling. I'll try to make it as dramatic voice as I can. So what I usually do, guys, is there's a couple different sources I like to look at, which is going to be FinViz, and then there's another website, which I hope I didn't close it out, which is called openinsider.com. It's a nice way for you to scan and filter and see kind of what's going on there with regards to specific companies, and you can do more filtering here. Most of the sites you have to pay for, but as you guys know me, I don't like to pay for stuff, so let's see if I can get it for free. And Siraj, thank you. I actually just noticed I crossed that 4,000 subscribers. I'd love to beat 100,000 or a couple million, but hey, you know what? It is what it is. But thank you very much. I appreciate it. Les says, Merlin, I noticed that Elon had already announced earlier that he was going to sell shares. Yeah, he's done really good about telegraphing his punches. So let's start things off with Tesla, since that's what most people are concerned with, or at least what Lee was asking about. So if you go to FinViz, you type in a ticker symbol, it brings up a very long page. And unfortunately, the info that we want is down near the end of this. So I'm going to scroll way down here. And lo and behold, you can see there's Elon Musk just unloading. Really started on the 8th of November. And I mean, these numbers are not small, man. This is some huge numbers here. This right here was a, let's see, what do we got? his value. So his first unload is for 800 million, then 478, 669. I mean, I think he's got close to $9 billion that he's sold in the past week and a half. Must be nice to be able to do that, but, So, does this part concern me? No, actually it does not concern me. It's one individual. He's said he's going to do it, and he hasn't sold in the past. I mean, notice I'm scrolling way back into the year. He hasn't sold at all. So this is just him unloading a giant chunk. What that will do is exactly what it is doing, right? It scares people into unloading. The blue line right here is when he made the announcement that he was going to start selling. So that was the Monday morning. So it opens up and, it's sold off and people bought it. So look at the price chart. I mean, good for Elon. I think he did the right thing. Honestly, if I had that kind of money too, I would be taking some off the table, especially after a big run like that. Now says he needs money for Christmas. Yeah, I think it's more Margaret's soon. This is lunch money. No big deal. I mean, $8 billion. It wouldn't be nice to look at $8 billion and be like, meh, no big deal. That's fine. No big deal. I got another, 150 billion stashed away somewhere in my assets. So it does not concern me, Lee, that Elon is doing it. I think it's actually the right thing to do. What would concern me is if in looking at this, I saw a significant amount of other insiders. Now, there's one thing I usually do not pay attention to, and you notice here there's a little line item that says options exercise. Unfortunately, in FinViz, you can't remove the options exercise. I don't really pay attention to those. Those are no big deal. Those are no-brainers, right? I mean, look at his options expiration right here. $6.24 was the option that he had, and basically any price above $6.24 he makes money. Well, for every one of those he sold, he ended up making $1,009 per share profit. Gotta love that. And you can see there's several people who are doing that rather regularly. You can see here Kimball Musk, who's the director or brother of Elon Musk. He sold some, but he also sold some shares, right? And he's been a bit more consistent. If we scroll down, I did see Kimball Musk here a few times selling. Not that big of a deal. I mean, these aren't huge amounts, right? He sold 12,000 shares of Tesla. And granted, it was $8 million, but in the grand scheme of things, not that big a deal. You look at some others. Here's a $46 million transaction back in April. But I don't see like a real unload by a group other than just this unloading by one person. So for me, no big deal. I really don't think that this is that big of a deal for Tesla. And as Big Eb says, he's also planning for higher capital gains taxes in the near future, perhaps. I would think so. I think that he's probably smart enough to realize that, my capital gains on my wealth is going to be higher later on. So, hey, I'll take some off the table. It was multifaceted here for Elon, so bravo, he did the right thing. Now let's take a look at some other companies, because it's not just Tesla in this situation. Right now, you have Google insiders have been unloading a lot. You have Facebook insiders have been unloading a ton. Does that maybe paint a little bit different of a picture? Well, let's look at their sheets and see what it says. So, Musk, not so concerned about. Let's look at Facebook here. Sorry, Meta platforms. And we'll scroll down. You can see that over the past couple of days, we've had a little bit of a sell-off, but really peaking out at about $383. And we're right now at $338, so not that big of a deal with regards to sell-off. But what I used to love doing, guys, and I am a total dork, you know that, I would love to go back through and line up the sales on the price chart. Just put vertical lines when somebody big sold. So here you can see Mark Zuckerberg doing something very similar to what Elon Musk is doing. Almost every sale. This is like every day Every day Mark Zuckerberg sells at least 77,000 shares of Facebook, which is $27.6 million a day he's selling. You gotta love that. That is... God, I'm not going to say I'm envious. That would be a little bit envious on my part. But sure, awesome. So if we scroll up here, notice that Zuckerberg actually stopped his selling, which is kind of interesting. He stopped his selling on November 8th. And a lot of others have been selling. You can see you've got the chief business officer, the CFO, David Wayner. Wayner has been selling a bit. This doesn't really concern me either because the amounts are really small, and this is probably getting some money for the holidays or just tax, getting out of there a little bit. So not that big a deal here either. You can see huge amounts of tax options expirations happening for a lot of the insiders as well. That's a nice way for them to make some quick change. But most of them really not selling that much, right? Selling small portions of their overall portfolio. Now, you can see here, this gets a little confusing sometimes, where you have, Mark Zuckerberg, it's showing all the shares that he has sold. Well, usually it gives over here on the right-hand side how many shares they have left. And I believe Mark Zuckerberg keeps his shares in a trust, which is separate, and therefore we don't see the exact numbers there. So not too big a deal with Facebook either, right, as far as a deluge of insiders. How about Google? So if you look at the Google one here, now all of a sudden it's a little bit different. Notice since November 1st, you have a lot of people were selling. So you have one of the directors, Ann Mather, sold. Now granted, 17 shares. Who cares, right? That's nothing. But you do have the CEO, Sundar Pichai. I always pronounce his name wrong. He was selling some shares. Philip Schindler. You've got all these directors, and then Sergey Brin and Lawrence Page selling. So this is a little bit more eyebrow raising, really. And basically just saying, collectively as a group, you've got your chief executive officer, you've got multiple directors, you got 4 directors, as well as some senior business officers and VPs, all started selling in November. This is more concerning for me. Right, that is a lot of names that are hard to pronounce. There are some names. I apologize if I have been butchering some of the names. I know Lawrence Page. That one I can pronounce pretty easy. Sergey Brin, I know that one as well. But when you look at Shriram Kavitark Ram, I'm sure I pronounced that one improperly, so I apologize to him. All right, so let's look at the price chart of, what are we on here? Google. Remember, they really started selling off November 1st. And this is what I love to do is from November 1st is really where we started to see the selling happen with regards to Google shares. Now, notice that as those insiders were selling, they were where? All-time highs for Google. So logically, that kind of makes sense to me as well. Like, why not, unload some there? But still making higher highs, still moving to the upside. So I find it interesting that everything else, we're talking Facebook, we're talking Tesla that we looked at so far, has been showing some sell-off in price and insider selling. Here you have insider selling and we're at all-time highs and just keeps on going. So it almost feels like this is due for a turn, that something's going to start to slide here just based off of some of these pretty big insider sales numbers. Now, granted, it's nothing to the scope that we're seeing with Elon Musk or with Zuckerberg's unloading, but there still are some pretty big numbers in here. This is several $100 million was sold in about a 2-week period of time on Google. And of course, right at all-time highs. Now, not to make us seem insignificant, but who do you think's knowledge is better of what's going on with Google and the future legal or anything to do with Google? Is it Big Ab or Margaret or Tom or Naum or me? We don't know shit compared to those guys. I mean, those insiders know all the nitty-gritty details about what's coming down the pipeline. So the only one of these 3 we've looked at so far where I kind of raise an eyebrow a little bit is going to be Google. And it's not like there's tremendous selling going on, but there is a lot of selling. And it's different. Sometimes you can actually see buying going on. And I kind of fell into this rabbit hole back in the 2000s. Actually, I think it might have been 2001, where I would follow the CEOs of companies or directors. And if all of a sudden the CEOs and those guys jumped in and started buying on major companies, not penny stocks, those are still trash. If they start buying on some of the bigger names, then I would try to ride their coattails. Now, let me tell you one story here real quick on how dangerous that can be. So the symbol was, and unfortunately it might be hard for me to pull up the chart because it was so long ago. If you look at CHK, Chesapeake Energy, there was the CEO, his name was Aubrey McClendon. And Chesapeake is one of the major players in natural gas, right? They are a huge player in that area. Their fundamentals look great, etc. So if we scroll over, and hopefully this will allow me to go back that far, CHK, Aubrey McClendon was buying like 1 million shares a month. He was just buying and buying and buying and buying. And he ended up pushing his share price up to unbelievably lofty levels. Oh, they must have done a restructuring. I can't get that price chart. It stops right there. That is such a bummer. Let me see if I can pull it up in TradeStation real quick. The evil platform. The necessary evil. Let's go .m. Yeah, unfortunately, that's the same thing. So they must have done a restructuring and wiped the slate clean and made a new company out of it. So the story was basically this. Aubrey McClendon was buying and buying, and the security kept going up. It was perfect. And he was basically pushing it up, kind of like Michael Saylor is doing with Bitcoin. And at a certain point, you keep pushing. If you get a piece of bad news and you're over leveraged, if it drops sharply, it could start to trigger a margin call. So what happened with Chesapeake is it jumped down a few percent, and all of a sudden it triggered margin call on Aubrey McClendon's account, which means he has to do what? Sell some of his position to pay the margin call. And all of a sudden, when he went to sell to clear up some space for margin, that further accelerated the sell-off, and all of a sudden you had one of the sharpest declines I've ever seen in the financial markets happen on CHK. Let me see if I can maybe pull it up on Google, an old image of it or something. CHK or margin call. How about that? Margin call. It was classic. Classic. No, now they want to say it's a movie. No, I want CHK. It was so cool. There it is. So there's Aubrey McClendon's holdings. And the poor guy ended up committing suicide, I believe. Andrew stock melted down to $30 million. He had $2 billion worth of CHK, the company that he was a CEO of. It fell all the way down to $30 million in 100 days. Look at this price chart. Boom. I mean, he was buying and buying and buying, and he was leveraging himself more and more and more and more and more. And all of a sudden, it just completely evaporated on him. And if you look, he did all these filings where he was, buying and buying and buying. I was following that. I was watching him as he was buying this stuff. I'm like, well, he must know better than anybody else. And all of a sudden, it came all crashing down. So I say that always as a cautionary note to be careful when you see insiders buying or potentially selling. Just because you've got all these directors and everything at Google and Facebook and, Meta, as well as, Microsoft has got selling going on, Tesla as well, don't necessarily mean you have to ride their coattails, but it does speak volumes to me about the confidence of it. If people are unloading a lot of shares, then, maybe there's some weakness coming for those securities. But to go to Lee's initial question, what do you make of it? It's not that much. Unless I see a really abrupt spree of selling going on in a security, I don't really care. It doesn't make too big of a difference to me, especially when somebody like Mark Zuckerberg is just repeat selling. It's automatically being done out of an account somewhere. No big deal. But when we have things at all-time highs, a lot of people look at that and go, oh, well, shoot, that means we're going to sell off and all of a sudden come crashing back down. No, we're not. That's perspective when you only have $30 million and you make the ultimate bad decision. Well, luckily I didn't ride it all the way down. I was kind of swing trading that one, and I was fortunate enough to get out early on with CHK. But it was an example of somebody using their power, and I thought this guy must know everything. Well, he didn't know it all. So if you are looking at these things, again, FinViz, I like it. Simple, easy way to do it. But if you want, you can go out here to openinsider.com. This one's pretty cool. I know it's really hard for everyone to see, so I'll make it bigger. You can change a lot of things. So for example, you can see right here, I've jumped the share price up to $50. That weeds out a lot of little penny stocks. How about $100? Right? So we'll say minimum $100. Also, these are filings for the last 6 months. You can see there's purchases, there's sales, there's grants, gifts, options expiration. So I like this better because you can just kind of filter through exactly what you're looking for. And in this case, let's go and see the big sales and see what we got. Now, when we scroll through here, let me make that 50 again because there was something interesting that came up here, which I'm sure some of you might notice. All right, so we've got $50 securities, that $50 or higher share price, and these are individuals who are selling, right? So you can see some pretty big names in here. You've got Sprout Social, you've got Evercore, you can see Clorox and DR Horton, but nothing like huge numbers. Here's your Vulcan Materials, which of course has been doing phenomenally well. We talked about that a couple days ago. But if I was to see a string, like here you got Cerence, right? You've got 3 people inside this Cerence company, which I don't know what they do, I'll be honest, have all of a sudden been filing to sell and selling a decent amount of shares. So that might start to make me, Jeff said he didn't know what margin calls. Apparently not. When it happened very quickly. It wasn't like this long, drawn-out process. One other thing, let's go click on buys. This was kind of cool. And I'll let you guys, you tell me, when you look at this, does something look weird here? and you may look down in kind of the middle of the list right here and say, holy cow, look at all these people loading up on Rivian, right? Wow, Rivian, it's the hottest thing on the planet right now. You're like, okay, well, that means it's going to go much, much, much higher. Careful. Again, notice the purchase price for everybody here was $78. Boom, 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 all $78. What this is insiders allowed to buy shares of the IPO before it went public. So the smart one here was the CEO, which is Robert Scaringe. I butchered that last name, I'm sure. Scaringe. Hey, Scaringe. He bought 128,000, so he basically shelled out $4 million out of his own pocket, and that's worth $10 million now. So that was a very quick 1 week of trading activity. Allow this guy to make some serious money. So here's what happened with Rivian. This is a daily. There's your Rivian chart. So hopefully he got out at 123 bucks. Remember, his average price was 78. And you're like, wait a minute, Merlin, that's not even on this chart. How is that possible? Well, if we look at 78 bucks, that's the IPO price that was the general consensus as to what this company is worth. It's never even seen that. So, for me, where do I think this is headed? I think it's headed back to 78. Generally, there's a good amount of math and tracking to come up with that number, to come up with the $78 strike price. And they raise it going into the IPO. I'm sure it was much lower than that before, but because of the demand, they raised price. Well, you can see here, we hit a high price of $179. So everyone on that list was in a very nice profitable position, or is still in a very nice profitable position. So that is, yeah, absolutely. He's taking a haircut. Well, I think this is actually as of today. This is as of today's price, but still pretty phenomenal. So when you see things like that, always check, make sure you're like, oh yeah, this was the IPO, and all these insiders bought it. But I also do like to look for people who are buying insider shares of a company. It's always kind of a nice thing to look for too. I always think the negative side, like, oh, it's just going to sell off. Anyway, I thought insiders were not allowed to sell for a time, i.e. 6 months. It depends on how it's all written up. It used to be a specific blanket number, and then it depends on the IPO. If it's a direct sale, they can sell right away. It depends on how it's written into that specific IPO. So it doesn't have to be 6 months. It can be 3 months, it can be 30 days, it can be 90 days. Some of them are immediate sale. If it's usually if it's one of the direct listings, it's a immediate sale. But it depends on the project itself or the IPO itself. Roland, you said these companies sold millions of shares. It's like me saying I took several ounces of water out of the Atlantic, so I lowered the sea level. That's a good way to look at it, Les. Right. When you look at the grand scheme of things and how much they're selling, it doesn't matter. That's the point I was trying to make with especially Zuckerberg. Zuckerberg has an unbelievable amount of shares of his company. I'll just bring up Facebook real quick and we can look at that one again. Unfortunately, it doesn't show his exact balance of shares here. It would be great if it did to get a better idea. It's kind of weird that it shows it here. He's got way more than 700,000. If I remember correctly, I believe it was something like 55 million is what he has, but don't hold me to that number. But you're right. Does Zuckerberg selling 72,000 shares of Facebook really make a big difference on the grand scheme of things? Not if he drips it, right? So if he's selling 72,000 shares a day, part of what that's doing is that is slowing the upward trajectory of Facebook, right? Because if you have buyers and sellers exactly the same, price just stays where it's at. If you remove shares from the equation, right? Actually, if you sell shares, you have more supply coming in, and that's Zuckerberg selling 72,000 shares. In order for it to move up, you have to have more buying, which could be part of the reason why we have seen Facebook sell off. So notice where he really started unloading, all right? It looks pretty consistent to me. But basically from August, oops, you can't see that. From August all the way through November 8th is when he was selling Facebook. Now, I don't know why he's taking a pause. I mean, he could probably keep on doing it. But let's double click on this bad boy. And here's where he started selling in August. Who knows if this was all because of him or, I know there was some bad news. This is, again, some of the court case going on with Facebook. But I'm sure at a certain point when he sells that much, it could potentially have an impact on the share price of the stock because he's consistently selling and unloading day after day after day after day. So, to answer that question, Lee, I don't make too much of it. I used to pay a lot more attention to it when I was day trading and really kind of digging into the numbers and seeing what all these guys were doing. But now, unless I see a whole slew of selling going on by insiders, I don't really think much of it. Look, I think that they put themselves under too much of a microscope, too, by regulators if all of a sudden they just dumped a bunch of shares and their price tanked. It's a red flag right away. But there you go. Okay, let me see what else I have. Speaking of earnings and big moves, let's talk about some of this stuff out here. So this is the earnings calendar for today, the 18th of November. We had Alibaba come out, and interesting because we talked about Baidu and Alibaba for a viewer, I think it was like a month and a half ago, and I said, look, the charts don't look great, but they are starting to turn, and it looks like there could be some upside here. Well, Alibaba reported earnings, as you can see there. They missed on earnings and took a big dump of 11% today. But the real crazy story for me is not Applied Materials, who was down 5%, not JD.com, who was up 6%, but Macy's, a 20% jump up at Macy's, and they just blew out earnings. They were expected to make 35 cents per share. They came out at $1.23. And the funny thing is, I was literally at Macy's last night. What an empty dump. The place was absolutely, there was so few people in there, like 5 people in the entire place that were customers. I was kind of surprised. Whatever they're doing damn well. So let's take a peek at the Macy's chart here and see what all the hubbub is about. So there you go, Macy's. I'll make it a weekly here so we can kind of see where it's coming back into. But clearly, that downtrend has been reversed. I mean, we knew that a while back. We knew that trend was reversed starting in 2021. Wouldn't that be nice if Macy's owned Bitcoin? I love it. Bring it on, Macy's. I highly doubt it. I'm not exactly sure why Macy's all of a sudden has had just such a monumental comeback. I mean, look at the lows we established back here in early 2020 when they were literally closed. We were at $4.50. Now it's at $37. That's incredible. Right? I agree with you, Big Eb. Why? I don't get it. And I'm in the store going, it's dead. It was horrible. And it's funny because I was looking at couches, right? So, of course, one thing I've learned is you always shop around as many places as possible. The deal will fall in your lap. And we're looking at the couches, and even some of the display stuff Macy's had was like broken and didn't work and scuffed furniture and couches. Like, really, this is just a bad showroom, I feel like I'm at the swap meet at the OC Fairground here. It's just kind of weird. All right, so with Macy's, as we look at this, you are coming right up into an area of supply. My gut was telling me, you know what, maybe we sell some puts, buy some puts on Macy's for the next few months. But I told myself I'll never short anything going into the holiday season again. So I am short free until January. I will not be shorting anything in the equity markets just because. Not for me. I've been burned too many times shorting going into holidays. But we've got this coming right up into this move right here. If you notice on the 12th of November, it opened up and then ripped down, and that was the start of this just huge downtrend it had. We're right back at that point now, which would be a logical turning point for it. So my gut tells me, you know what? Just buy some puts. Buy some February puts. Why February? Because it'll probably do well for Christmas. And then all of a sudden, January, we get that buyer's remorse and things start to slow down in January. And then the January numbers usually are not good. So Maybe I go February or March. I may buy one contract just for fun for us, just to see what it looks like and hold on to it. But boy, Macy's looking incredibly strong right now. Great earnings blowout. Alibaba, let's check out Baba. Not looking good, right? Oops. Not looking so good. Alibaba on the weekly came right back down. It's at a double bottom right now. If I flap this out to a daily, you guys can see that earnings announcement just, boom, created it right down into these lows. So if you are holding Alibaba, you get below 137 or 138, excuse me, you might want to back out of that position because it was starting to form some strength and then just has fallen apart. Bad earnings announcement. And then Baidu, which was last week, you can see their announcement as well. I think it was last week. But what's interesting, I haven't moved this trend line yet. Notice it's right down to this trend line. So, this could be a potential buy point for Baidu, but that's catching a falling knife and pretty dangerous right now. What does Tom say? My first guess is that e-commerce is carrying them. E-com was growing at 14% before the lockdown is much higher now. Yeah, sure, but I don't know. Who's buying it? I mean, here's an example. You guys can pick. I challenge anybody here to go to Macy's and pay whatever price it is that they are offering for that item. You pay that price. I'm willing to bet you $50 that I can find that item cheaper somewhere else. Same item. You want to talk about Levi's brands or Moschino clothing, or you want to buy a Kate Spade handbag? You buy it at Macy's, I'll buy it at least 10% cheaper somewhere else. I just don't get it. Maybe there's a prestige to it. Ladies, you tell me, is saying, oh, I shop at Macy's. I'm the type of guy's like, hey, I got a deal. Where'd you get it? Does it matter? I got the same bag as you at a huge discount. M is a dinosaur. I don't know if it's a dinosaur. It's just it's a dying breed, right? The retail stores to me just, especially Macy's, it's like they think their name demands a premium, and so their prices are higher. I just don't get it. Anyway, I'll stop my vent. No more venting on Macy's. Yeah, I could buy a knockoff, but that's not me either. I mean, I'll try to buy something. I mean, depends on if it's for me. I'll tell you what, my favorite pair of jeans I have ever bought in my life is from Costco. It's Kirkland jeans. I know, it sounds stupid. My girlfriend gives me the hardest time about it. She's always like, I hate those jeans. You're never going to be seen in public with me. I'm like, they are so comfortable. I don't care that it says, it doesn't say Kirkland on the jeans. It's something else. But, oh my goodness, they are the most comfortable jeans I've ever got in my life. I bought one pair in each color. All right, let's move on now to my frugality and making me sound like a cheapskate here. There we go. Can you please comment on the Turkish lira? I've never traded before. Ethan, thanks. First off, I haven't traded the Turkish lira either. Turkish lira is not something I want anything to do with. It has a very wide spread. Let me bring it up here, and we'll go to USD Try, I believe is the name. Yeah, there you go. So here is your Turkish lira. And, if you just took out this watermark, and I told you this was Bitcoin, everybody here would go, yep, yeah, Bitcoin chart looks great. It's not. This is a currency. So I don't trade this one. I wouldn't trade this one just because the spread is too big and it's too risky. But basically what happened is, Turkey devalued their currency. Again, they dropped it 100 basis points. So they cut their Fed funds rate, if you will, 100 basis points. That's a full percentage. Like we're talking about raising sometime next year, maybe 25 basis points, right? 25. And Turkey did it 4 times that in one day. Just boom, here you go. We're cutting it 100 basis points. What that's designed to do is actually, in theory, should help their market, right? When you drop the rate, you're actually making your currency less desirable, but what it does is bring money, in theory, into your country. Now, what does that mean? That means that if you went to Turkey, let's just say, let's zoom out a little bit. Let's say you went to Turkey back in, I don't know, let's do right here. I'm going to go down to 550, right? You went to Turkey back in 2019, pre-COVID, right? There you go. You got like a great time to go. We're pre-COVID. Let's go to Turkey. Let's go to Istanbul or Constantinople. Well, right now, if you want, you could buy well over double what you could before, meaning your US dollars can buy you way more, right? So $1 used to buy you 5 Turkish lira. Now it buys you 11. That's a great thing for anybody like me who loves to travel. Now, Turkey's still a bit politically unstable, and I don't know if I really want to go there yet. But boy, it's becoming extremely inviting to think about going to Turkey because, I mean, look at that. Now, you're right. Big F says Turkey's got a very high interest rate. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, right now I think that they're an absolute mess economically. So I really wouldn't mess with this. I think the volatility is just too crazy. You're going to have extremely wide spreads, Ethan. When you trade on this one, they're very, very large spreads. So you can look right down here. Your bid is 11.0779 and your ask is 11.1193. I mean, that's a massive spread on the Turkish lira. To have it up 4% in one day just kind of speaks volumes as to how risky that one can be. So I would be a little bit, I'd be scared of this one. I wouldn't touch it. If you do it with very little money, be, you know, kind of for fun, but pretty dangerous to be juggling that one. It could come down very quickly. I am more of a Frank or a Turkmenistan. You're fun. We got nerd humor, Tom, and the currency humor. Let's see. What do I think about PayPal? Not looking good. Now, I like PayPal as a company, but does that mean right now is the time? Right? I don't think so. You know, it looks real ugly right now. We're not at a demand zone either. Like, I think if you got a little bit lower, right now, PayPal's looking at a $200 tag, $200.50. You get down to $191.50, maybe, as a better buy point. But for whatever reason, PayPal's broken. You know, you can see their peak here at $311, $310, and all of a sudden now you are 30% discount. That's pretty aggressive. So I don't know if I would attempt to buy PayPal here, even though I think they're a great company. I don't think they're going to be going away anytime soon. You know, the challenge I have with things like that is if you buy PayPal at 200, thinking, man, it's down 30%, what a deal. Well, what are you going to be telling yourself if it closes this gap down here at 128? Right? Now all of a sudden you're down $80 per share and you're like, oh, hell, what do I do now? So I'm more in the camp of let's let this thing hit a zone, a demand zone that looks strong. And if that demand zone holds, maybe I'll add some more to it. But, you know, catching this falling knife right now, too risky. Too risky. I'm a risk-averse kind of guy with regards to catching falling knives. It's the anti-reopening trade. Lululemon for Margaret. Lulu, now on the other hand, looks almost the exact opposite, right? Lulu looking great. Thank you, Peloton, I guess, right? So the chart here on Lulu, the challenge is, do you buy it now? You're at all-time highs. You know, it's really hard to kind of pull the trigger at the lofty levels, but the chart looks great. Right? It's had some nice pullbacks in the demand zone. You saw that earnings announcement, sold off, came right to the bottom of the demand zone, and ripped out of it. I'd be more interested down around the 450 mark. We're at 473 right now, so you know, the chart looks great. I'm definitely bullish on Lululemon. I mean, how could you not be? What's not to be bullish about on Lululemon? You know, it did have a little bit too strong of a move, in my opinion, from October 12th through November 1st. I mean, that's a really parabolic move, but it hasn't given it back yet. So, yep, there you go. That's my take on that one. What else I see? Best Buy. Oh, you had to bring on BBY, huh? Had to bring up Believable. Thanks a lot, dude. You know this is my thorn in my side. Best Buy. I hate Best Buy. Similar picture, although, you know, I think that this is anticipation of the holiday season. You notice that just real big run-up, that start to the holiday. Big move up from 105 to 135. So, you're up 30% in a period of a month. That's pretty impressive. I am not overly bullish on Best Buy. I think you're going to have a pullback here. Now, if you look at that run-up, I don't even see anything in here that screams demand zone, in my opinion. I know some of you may see something slightly different. That's fine. You know, there's a little hesitation right here at about 129, 130. Other than that, there's nothing strong. There's no real area where we go, man, that's a great demand zone for this to pull back into. So my gut would say wait for a pullback before buying into this one. But where is the demand zone? I don't see it. I don't see one other than, you know, getting all the way back down to 105, which probably won't get to 105 till after Christmas. You know, this, even though we have all these supply chain disruptions, yada, 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 all these guys are looking pretty good right now, and Best Buy definitely having a phenomenal move. You know, maybe one year I will have the revenge trade on Best Buy, and I'll just do nothing but buy calls starting in October, and I'll buy the January calls. That's what I should have done. But anyway, let's see. I didn't look at the one. I think the 180 mark. A little bit lower down there, yeah. Right at kind of this. You know, you could go. If you're doing a zone, you know, you could even go even lower. You've got this 176 down to 172 mark. The challenge is it's not really a fresh area. It's been tested before, so getting down that low, you know, it's been hit a few times, so that starts to lose a little bit of its credibility for me from that perspective. Let's see. I'm a nerd and a geek, Tom. I like to think I'm both. Oh, the Israeli shekel, huh? You got another one, Daniel, that I've never traded. I actually own some shekel. Like, I have like 2 coins a friend brought me back from Israel. I still have not made it to Israel. Let's start with the big picture here with the shekel. If I look at this on a weekly basis, looks great. So since the ILS, which is the Israeli shekel, is first, that means that in this case, the Israeli shekel is getting much stronger against the US dollar. So all in all, it's looking great. Again, you're breaking into, at least for this chart, uncharted territories, right? Excuse me. All in all, looking good. But with this long topping tail right here, it just screams that it wants a pullback. You know, and it feels like you can have this pull back a little bit, maybe get down to that 32 mark. But all in all, great chart. Looks strong. You're going to have, you know, slightly wider spread than a normal US-based pair, but still pretty good. Best Buy supply zone at 120, shooting star. Nice. Now you're talking dirty to me. Let's see. So I think you're referencing this one back here. But would you call that? I wouldn't call that a demand zone. I mean, you know, you could go if you. I think that's what you're asking. Is you saying this is a demand zone for the next, you know, pullback? Is that spot a demand zone? I mean, it doesn't have any more strength than any other level, in my opinion. Now, I think maybe less what you're asking is this shooting star that formed right here. Like if we played the hard right edge, which I love doing the hard right edge, which is this, and said, okay, you know. If we saw that pattern right there, I mean, guys, if Best Buy was something that I wanted to trade, and I have bad blood with Best Buy, so I'm probably never going to trade it again. But if this popped up, and let's say this is today, unless you asked me, hey, what are your thoughts on Best Buy right now? What do you think I'm going to tell you? It's pretty easy what I'd be saying. I'm saying, all right, guys, you are rallying up. You came right up in an area of overhead supply where you had this last big move down. What I would recommend is if you're going to trade it, put a line across the low of today's shooting star candle, which is 121.16. If tomorrow it opens up above 121.16 and then sells off below it, go short. And it opened up above 121.16, had a great shorting opportunity intraday. That's in hindsight, you know, we're all geniuses, but that you guys know me well enough that is exactly what I would have told you to do. I'm not talking after the fact and saying, oh, I should have. That's if we had this on, that's the trade setup there from an intraday perspective. All right, let's see real quick. I have to get to, since Alex is still here, and you've been very patient, Alex. You asked me this question, and I will see if I can get to it. There it is. Alex asked this one. He says, as you know, I'm invested long-term in GEVO. I got in at $4.25 for 10,000 shares, and I want to double my position to 20,000 shares, but don't want to pay full current share price. So my question is, how can I get more shares to hold on to the long-term through options rather than buying the shares directly? It's kind of tricky. So normally what I would tell you, Alex, is this. You could go out there, and let's go look at GEVO. Okay, and right now you're trading at $6.37 in the postmark in the after hours. So let's put some lines on here so I can get your. I think you said your average price was $4.25. Yes, $4.25. All right. So if your average price was $4.25, put that coordinates on here. right? Great. You're obviously doing pretty good. You got yourself a few grand, right, or 20 grand. Looking pretty good. Love it. Congrats. So if you want to buy more, the way that you could look at this, at least from my perspective, would be using options. So selling puts, cash secured puts. So let's say you've got another $10,000 in your account that you want to put in. If you have that $10,000 in cash, then you could sell some puts, keep the $20,000 in that account, sell some puts against it. The problem is with GVO, this is not a heavily traded security. You notice here, it's average daily volume right now. This won't let me get the ADV. It does trade, it looks like 5 million shares maybe a day. That's actually pretty decent. But on the options chain, it's not very liquid. And what's interesting about GVO is it only has strikes every $2.50. So you have a $5 strike. You got that one there. And then you have a $7.50 strike, which is right here. So you have a choice of, you could sell the put at $5. And again, it's rather illiquid, so there's not a lot of liquidity. If you sold the put at $5, what that means is if you collect premium, and it was not very much, it was like 10 cents, I think. You could collect premium, and if GVO got to $5 or $4.99 by the time of expiration, you would own the shares at $5. And then you also got to keep the premium. Probably not a great trade. What you could do is you could sell an in-the-money put at $7.50, which actually had more liquidity than when I looked at the option chain, had more liquidity than the $5 one. And what that means is you're pretty much guaranteed to own those shares at $7.50. However, for that risk, what they were paying at the time when I looked at it was $1.38. So you're going to basically commit yourself to buying at $7.50, which may seem higher than what you want. But remember, you're collecting $1.38 already, which means your average buy price would be $6.12, which was lower than current market. So you technically would be buying long $6.12 if you sold the $7.50 puts. So that's how you could do it. Unfortunately, there's risk here because the strike prices are $2.50 apart. So the next one up here is going to be $10 and it's so on and so on. So it's not a very liquid options play. But Alex, that's how you would do it, using options to hopefully get yourself some more shares without just buying outright right now at $6.58. Okay? I think that got me through all the questions. Any more? I'll save this one for tomorrow. Karen's question on moving averages. So let me wrap things up. What time we got? Holy cow. I can't believe my throat's made it. It's good. So with regards to economic announcements and earnings, tomorrow's earnings calendar is pretty much dead, right? There you have Foot Locker and you have the Buckle. So nothing really that exciting. If you look at your economic calendar for tomorrow, though, there is some good stuff in here. You can see for the U.S., we pretty much have a bunch of, FOMC members speaking. With Canada, they have retail sales numbers. And if you've been following the Canadian dollar, over the past few months, it's been aggressively down. But all of a sudden, our past 30 days, it's been curling back up and looking stronger. I guess I could share that with you guys. Where's my Canadian dollar? And finally, the euro bounced nicely today too. Finally, we had a great hammer formation. You look at the last few months, it's pretty aggressively to the south side, and then all of a sudden you have this on the CAD USD, pretty aggressive to the south side. So Canadian dollar is getting weaker, and of course, a lot of that has to do with the Dixie, which has just been flying since it broke out of that pattern here, which you've had mapped out. So looking great. Another great Forex play is that euro. So you guys might remember we talked about it on Monday Morning Must Knows. If it broke below this line right here, right around 115, said there could be some good downside movement, and lo and behold, it had a real nice move to the south side. And then all of a sudden yesterday, wrong indicator, moving average, give me volume off there. Notice yesterday that hammer formation. So again, what would he have said right here? Said, man, that looks beautiful. Put a line across the high of that session, which would have been right there at 113.20 or 113.32, and all of a sudden we ripped through that today, and who knows, we might get a reversal all the way back up to 114.50 on the euro. All right, so I think I covered everything. How far out would you look at that option? So generally, Alex, if I am selling options, I want to do 30 days or less. So if I'm selling it, which is what you would be doing in this case, I would be doing 30 days or less. If I'm buying options, it's 90 days or more. That's just my rule. Some people do it differently, but remember, when you're selling it, you don't want to give the buyer of that option a lot of time. Time is your enemy. You want to just have as short a time as possible and let that time decay quickly. No problem, Alex. Anytime. And thank you for your help over the years. Cool. So I think that does it. We got the economic out of the way. You got no real earnings calendar information. Tomorrow, I'm hoping I can have a nice cold frosty glass of whiskey. See if my throat holds up. But yeah, I'm pretty sure we'll have a nice glass of whiskey. So if you guys have comments, feedback, questions, if you like today's show, if you're new, hit subscribe. If you like it, hit the thumbs up button. Always hit the like button. We appreciate that. You can put comments down below the YouTube video. Or if you want me to cover something on tomorrow's show, the sooner you send it in, the more likely I'll be able to research and build and get some content ready for the show. You can do that at TraderMerlin@gmail.com is where you should email me for that info. That's TraderMerlin@gmail.com. Thanks, everybody. I will see you mañana. Take care.